That was such a tremendous session. And how can a tournament be accessible and sustainable? And now it is time to enter into a session to receive Josoor updates of 2021-2022. The session is moderated by Mr. Mohammad Bashir Mirza, Reporting and Management Systems Director, Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. Mr. Mohammad Bashir Mirza has worked in the oil, infrastructure, and mega event industry for 33 years. His work has been taken him to US, Europe, and the Middle East while working for Bechtel, Shell, Qatar Gas, and the Supreme Committee for Delivery and Legacy. Bashir is a mechanical engineer and has an MBA from Warwick Business School. He joined SC for Delivery and Legacy in 2014 as Director Program Management Office. He is now the Director of Reporting and Risk and Program Services. He is company's subject matter expert on project management, risk management, and strategic planning. His motto is, "A winner is not someone who wins all the time. A winner is a person who never gives up." I hereby welcome Mr. Bashir. Please take the floor.
Thanks very much, Dr. Swati, for a very kind introduction. So this whole HIWAR event has been organized by Josoor. We have talked about and learned a lot about sports, events, management. This morning, there was a great session on diplomacy. In the next half an hour, we have an opportunity to learn more about Josoor itself, the entity. And Josoor has, from my point of view, it means bridges in Arabic, as probably most of you know. It's the flagship project of flagship legacy project of Supreme Committee. And it is sponsored by none other than our Secretary General, Hassan Al-Tawadi. It's led very well by Afra Al-Nuaimi. And we in Supreme Committee are really very proud of Josoor. So today we have three very senior people from Josoor to talk about it. We have Michele Petochi, we have Dr. Swati Prasad, and we have Vazken Kurkjian. Let me introduce them briefly, one by one. Michele Petochi is Business Development Director at Josoor Institute, having joined SC Josoor a year ago, just a few days before lockdown, from Switzerland, where he spent the last 15 years between World Economic Forum, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, films, and other projects. He works closely with Vazken, Swati, and the Josoor team, and other colleagues at SC in the value creation and promotion of Josoor as education and training arm of our organization, and a legacy project that has to make a statement in sports and events management going forward. So that's Michele for you. And then Dr. Swati. Dr. Swati Prasad is Education Manager at Josoor Institute and works closely with SDA Bocconi for the past 3 years in many aspects related to the field of sports management and events management in Qatar and the MENA region. She holds a unique strategic position by being a bridge between Josoor and Bocconi School in delivering excellence. Vazken needs no introduction. I think our audience has seen and heard him already during this event. From my viewpoint, Vazken has been the most visible and omnipresent face of Josoor. He has shown remarkable energy, stamina, and commitment to the cause of Josoor. And if I can speak on behalf of SC, we are grateful to him for his huge contribution towards Josoor's success. Before we start, I would like to invite the audience to please raise your questions in the Q&A section, and I will raise them as time permits to the panelists. So without further ado, let me invite Michele first to speak for a few minutes about Josoor.
Thank you very much, Bashir, and I'm glad to be here with you, with Vazken and Swati, as part of this adventure, which, as I said, I joined relatively recently and at the beginning of the lockdown. So I came to Doha with my small suitcase, thinking that, well, I would have been able to spend a couple of weekends later in Switzerland, and I was here for 4 months in Rome without the possibility of meeting anyone. However, the first thing I would say about Josoor, because that is a good segue to your question, it is an incredibly cohesive team that has been strengthened a lot by facing COVID together. And that's been, I think, a very successful case of a team that has managed to stick together and to continue to deliver no matter the situation, and also no matter the challenges that from a technical point of view, a complete shift from offline into online implies. As most of you know, and for those who join us today from outside, Supreme Committee and Josoor has been around for several years, not as long as the project of the World Cup, but nearly. And it's been providing education and training to a fairly broad range of clients, of delegates. A good percentage of these participants came from Supreme Committee itself. So we've helped build capacity for the very project of the World Cup by means of providing our colleagues with world-class education in sports and major events management, namely initially with Georgetown and Leeds Beckett, and now with SDA Bocconi School of Management. In parallel with that, we've been providing, and maybe Vasco will elaborate on that more later, regular executive training for senior managers at Supreme Committee, other organizations, football family, and the like. The growth of Josoor has been partly driven by demand and partly driven by demand that we think we are creating. It is a very interesting platform to reach out to organizations from the football family and sports family, but also other types of organizations, because at the very end of the day, this amazing journey of 2022 and beyond is an amazing experience in management. And either you come from sports management or from events management or from hospitality management, for example, apart from the specific aspects which are sector related, you learn about managing projects, you learn about managing people, you learn about deadlines, you learn about putting things together efficiently. And that is something that you can apply, with a few exceptions, almost in every field, at the corporate level, at the specific project level. And I would stress a specific project level because the industry of sports and events is very much project driven. So there might be 2-3 years during which you are so busy, and then there might be another 6 months during which you are preparing yourself for new adventures. So it is a very interesting and organic sector. The other day, Bashir, and then I would like to hand over the floor to Swati and Vasco as well. You asked me where, what happens to Josoor after the World Cup, which is a bit of $1 million question, and but it's a great question. It's actually the question we ask ourselves every day, and I would suggest that three elements for the answer. The first part of the answer is that Josoor will continue to exist. The second part of the answer is that it will continue to exist under a form which has been studied in depth together with other options, and it will be decided at the right time. And third, it will continue to exist as a legacy and as a hub of people, namely delegates, alumni, and other professionals in the network of Josoor, a hub of content, the content in sports management, events management, hospitality management that we have been developing so far and that we will be continuing to develop later on, and a hub of platforms, which resonates a lot at the moment because we've had to go into new platforms, but it is a very strategic approach, because platform could be a diploma program offline, platform could be an online degree, platform could be an event, for example, like this HIWAR that we are doing at the moment. Platform could be a very strategic, conference call that you create between two leaders of key organizations. So we are learning a lot in terms of the opportunities of utilizing all the different platforms and projects in a very integrated way, and without even thinking anymore whether something is offline or online, because it is now both are part of the same approach. That I think has been the very interesting lesson and acceleration of this pandemic. A lot of things we knew, a lot of things we were maybe not entirely ready, but the advantage of these very challenging situations is that you are forced to do, otherwise you just don't do. And the world is divided between those who managed to do and those who are managing to, so if either those who didn't manage to do, or those who took the risk, because this is about risk taking. I would stop here. I'd like, I'm happy to continue this conversation.
Thanks, Michele. And as a project manager, it's music to my ears when you talk about sports events and project management. That's extremely important to make sure that we have project management professionals involved in event management. Now, let me ask Dr. Swati to say a few words, and I'm seeing a couple of questions, and we can deal with them later at the end. Dr. Swati.
So, it's really a privilege for me to work for SDA Bocconi School of Management and to work along with Josoor Institute in order to deliver the diploma programs. We all know that these two diploma programs, sports management and major events management, are the flagship program of Josoor Institute. And this is the third year SDA Bocconi is offering the two diploma programs. And it will not be an exaggeration for me to say that each year how we have developed and enhanced ourselves, to provide the course in its best way, that can be better received by the delegates. Can you hear me well?
You're just breaking up slightly.
Okay.
Speak a little louder, please.
Now?
That's better.
Fine. Okay. All right. So, as I mentioned that, and the reason why I mentioned that every year that we are improving, the number of delegates, the participants that we have for the program each year has always, we've seen there's an increase in the number. The example that I would like to give here is the last year when we started the course, and actually the format of the course is a usual traditional classroom method. It's a face-to-face delivery method. We started off with the first block, and COVID hit, where we were forced to go online. And this change was so sudden because, all the decisions had to be made, that we actually started to wonder, how are we going to take it? What platform are we going to use? But the collaboration, I would say Josoor Institute and the SDA Bocconi collaboration is so profound. And I would say that was so eventful for us to make a quick decision to move on to a Zoom platform. And it was not an easy task, I would say, because from the SDA School Bocconi end, the entire material had to be transformed in a way that can be projected through the Zoom to the delegates in the most efficient way that the message reaches to the delegates. And even not just because it's just not about teaching, it's also about engaging the industry experts. We have international guest speakers, then we have regional guest speakers. So, all those kind of things, we really had to think how about doing it, but it really went well. And since every the course is divided into 6 blocks, so after the first block we went online, and every block we enhanced ourselves and we made it better and better. So while we were still hoping to get back to a normal situation, we are still in present COVID-19 circumstances, that we had to start this cohort in an online mode still. But hoping to get back to normalcy soon, where we can, offer it in a traditional classroom style, and we get to see everybody, in person, because that kind of interaction is still missed, right? So, this is from my end, and yeah.
All right. Thanks, Dr. Swati. And indeed, as you say, this change came about quite quickly, and this is also a sign of good organizations where we can react quickly. So, with the help of Bocconi, Josoor changed immediately, and I would also suggest that this could be the new normal. So we are going online, and they may not be going back to the previous. Maybe it's a mixture, maybe a hybrid approach.
Yes,
but,
the blended approach. Yes.
Yeah, look at the advantages of online teaching. So if we have time, we will talk a little bit more about that later. Thanks. Let me bring Vasco in, the face of Josoor, in my words, and I think they are true. Vasco, tell us a little bit about Josoor.
Thank you, Bashir. Thank you, everyone, for this welcoming invitation. What I just want to do is, I'm sure everyone now has heard about Josoor, but I'd like to take a more bird's eye view. Yes, there are the diploma programs. Yes, there are trainings, but more in a nutshell, Josoor is really trying to provide the tools, for all kinds of human capital development. It is directly contributing in the state of Qatar's knowledge-based economy, and through education, through knowledge. It's all the accumulation of what Josoor, when it was launched in December 2013, and all the research done by Josoor or by partners of Josoor really indicated that the state of Qatar, where now it has taken its wings in terms of nourishing it, in terms of really implementing its purpose, and then taking education, what really is out there, what has worked out there in previous mega events, and how Qatar can really embrace that and create a bridge towards its own legacy, towards its own citizens, towards its own expatriates. And Josoor is really ticking these boxes by, first and foremost, actually carrying the name, becoming a bridge joining nations, a bridge joining international organizations, a bridge joining the local community together. And the way we do that, we break down all this knowledge, we break down into certain education elements, such as how Dr. Swati mentioned, our flagship program. We're proud that by the end of this year, we are going to continue with our 6th edition in the diploma program of sports and events management. That is by far in itself a huge accomplishment. And then, of course, not to mention our dedication and our gratitude to the whole internal football family or sports family, to name it. Definitely towards SC, towards the internal departments, where the next year and a half is going to be a more focus on how Josoor can support in terms of things that need to be required as training in the stadiums itself, and volunteering, and in new kinds and new forms of training, where technology now has really proven itself. It has accelerated the creativity. It has really put on the gear on how we can deliver things, not necessarily only physically. I personally believe the blended approach would be the next best thing. And definitely not to mention the legacy of all this, all this knowledge. Our colleagues mentioned Josoor will continue post 22. This is just a part of the journey, and the real journey is just beyond. What we see ourselves is giving back to the community, giving back to the society, and throughout so many other intervals, not only education, but also there are many factors related to research. And it goes again, it's knowledge, how we really treat knowledge, how we really make it available to everyone, and definitely how we make sure that this knowledge also feeds into the mechanism of people having job opportunities within the sports sector.
No, indeed, Vasco, as you mentioned, Qatar national vision is very clear. It wants to make Qatar a knowledge-based economy. And that's why Josoor is such an important legacy component of Supreme Committee, because it contributes to Qatar national vision. I have a question from Ahmed Ramita, and he says, the role of human resources management in running sports institutions. I guess I would rephrase saying, what is the role of human resource management in running sports institutions? Can I ask Michele if you could come in and say something about that?
Thank you. I think Bashir, it's a great question. Part of the answer goes back to what we said earlier, that as you learn about sports and events management, there is a very important component of human resources. This is about it goes from personal leadership skills down to collaborating with large teams according to formal reporting and collaboration lines, and according to non-formal collaboration lines, which are equally important. So under the pressure of projects which are in the sports and events area, there is such an opportunity in stepping up one's human resources capabilities, both at an individual level and at the level of human resources, more specifically, in case you are from human resources or talent management. More concretely, and going to, in a way, to the future of Josoor and the legacy, it will be very interesting from our perspective to contribute to helping colleagues themselves who are working with us at the moment be successful afterwards, and that might happen through, for example, the value that a program in sports management or events management might have generated for you, to specific coaching sessions, to maybe to increase the awareness on some aspects of technological development, which would make your resume even stronger, and probably also which is something that is an ongoing conversation for us, but nonetheless very interesting. The moment we think about Josoor as an independent organization afterwards, doesn't matter which form, it's an organization where strong people will have to work, and it will be very interesting as a bridge, because in the end, Josoor is a bridge. Why not think about Josoor as a bridge also from a human resources standpoint? Tapping into talent we've been already collaborating with and working together. There was, more and more, and that is not about Josoor or Supreme Committee itself, but about the job market in general. And tomorrow we will go more in depth into that. We live in a much more networked job market. Until probably 20, 30 years ago, it was very much organized into organizations, and then there were the consulting companies, for example. Today, either because it is easier to circulate, either because it is easier for someone to get to be known more than before, nothing prevents from strong professionals who work on an individual level to assemble themselves, to aggregate themselves as a successful project team. They don't have to work together their entire life, but they can work together successfully for a specific project. And back to your introduction, Bashir, about sports and events. This is a very project event-driven industry. So that's exactly the kind of thing that strong professionals like those who will come out of the World Cup may end up doing.
Very good. Thanks, Michele. I have another question, which perhaps is a relatively straightforward one, from Mohammad Zawi. He says, can I participate in a study at Josoor Institute this season, 2020? I guess the gist of the question is how can they enroll in a course for Josoor in this year? Well, it says this season 2020. I guess he meant 2021.
Well, we can look at it in both ways.
Yeah.
Definitely, first, thank you to the question. But there are so many programs getting launched and are already being delivered this year. So definitely a place to join. Mr. Mohammad, I guess his name. And if that wasn't the question, there are so many research case studies happening this year by Josoor that he can actually be also part of people, contributing either by taking some surveys, samples, being part of a population. So there are so many ways to engage with Josoor.
Very good. I have a question for Dr. Swati. You mentioned the switch to online, and I myself am interested in asking this question is, what are the pros and cons of online versus physical classroom? And you could look at it from the student point of view, from the instructor, from organizer. How do you see the difference?
Well, there are pros and cons basically for for any situation. Here, when I look from the student's perspective, it's the pros would be that they can have the class done from anywhere, from work, from office, or from stadium if you're working the stadium. But the cons is it's a missed opportunity, to meet up with your peers in person and meet up with your professors, be in an environment where you actually get direct feedback and understanding each other more better. So that is somewhere I feel that the deficit is there because the course going online, definitely. From the, I would say, instructors' point of view, it's actually, I have a background of teaching, so I can actually relate to it. So difficult it is to see a person who I am teaching is not basically there, it's behind the screen. It's very important to interact face to face with a student, to provide that kind of, to make that connection, to understand, because we normally rely on reading the face and reading the mind of the student before we actually even begin the class, whether what is the level of the student in terms of the subject that I'm going to start with. So these things are very important. And now at this point of time, that's the basic challenge. But the pros, I would say, is that we can reach out to the larger number of students. So in a classroom, if we can just accommodate, let's say 20-25, we can reach out to 60 or so. Giving this is the highest number, we would have a gather. So this is the positive part of it. And we can also make use of the tools, different tools. If I'm talking about Zoom itself, that's the platform we are using to interact. So there are different variety of tools that we kind of educate ourselves also as instructors, to make things look more interactive, or to break the monotony of just talking as we are doing right now. So those are the pros and cons from the instructor's point of view. From the organizer's point of view, I would say that now we are more technology dependent. We are dependent on, we were using something called as Moodle, which is a course management system from before, where they, before COVID hit. But now it's also about managing the Zoom part of it, and then educating the delegates how to use that. Other than that, I would like to say and take this opportunity to really congratulate and the IT department of Josoor, which works so closely with SD Bocconi team in order to facilitate and to provide all that what is necessary for that effective administration of the program. And so this is a nutshell, the idea, the evolution, the idea is to evolve and to adapt and to make things better. And this can only happen if there is a very solid collaboration, which I can see that's happened.
Indeed, no, it's a very good answer. I can tell you from my personal experience, my son loves it. He loves online because he stays at home. He doesn't have to do anything. But I think, as you say, it's the social part that the students and teachers are missing. Now, it's nearly the end, but I think I would just like to squeeze one more question before we can close the session. And this is to do with, again, going back to the legacy part. So Josoor is creating this pool of skilled people in the field of sports management, event management. How will Josoor leverage this group of people? It could be in Qatar, it could be beyond that. How do we do that?
Maybe I shall share some comments, and would love Vasco to jump in as well. Obviously, this is at the core of the legacy, and also at the core of the business model of Josoor for the coming years. What is very interesting of the sports and events field is that on one hand it is a relatively niche area, certainly an industry which is accelerating, though less mature here in this part of the world than, for example, in the US and UK, etc. But nonetheless, it is an area where access is quite easy for people across gender, across ages, across professional background. And that's what we see with our delegates, first of all, our alumni. It is a highly diversified group, including middle managers, individual professionals from various fields, athletes. It's a really, really interesting network. And that is going to be the force, the strength of Josoor. That is why we try to stay in touch with our alumni as much as we can by means of career advice, by just mean of, share a selfie with us, like be with us. And that's important because these are testimonials first, and second, so testimonials of a successful education provider, but also, and maybe even more importantly, they start to feed a network of professionals who are individually accountable to the things that they're doing, but they are also accountable to the network to which they belong. So if you are successful as an individual, that also makes your network more successful. If you do something wrong as an individual, you have to remember that you are not doing it wrong for yourself as well, but you have a responsibility to your network. That is a very powerful notion. And I think it is especially powerful as we look at Qatar and the MENA region more in general. Obviously, there are different countries with different situations in the MENA region. Margareta yesterday gave a good overview. This is not one only type of geography, of wealth, etc. But there are a lot of common denominators. And the common denominator of culture, the common denominator of the excitement for this new type of projects which put the region on the radar will be an engine for Josoor to engage and recruit and staying in touch with its people. So I think it is a great opportunity, even though there is a degree of competition, and I would say competition in this particular case is rather keeping interesting organizations even closer to you, because what do you do with a successful, for example, sports management university or sports management small company but very successful in a market which is more mature? Well, can you really compete with them? Well, you're maybe not, but you can partner with them to produce a new offering. That I think is an interesting proposition.
Very good. No, thanks very much. And I think it's if it'd be great if Josoor can actively manage the alumni and use that power that resides in them, each one of them, for fulfilling the goals, which are the legacy goals. I would just like to thank our panelists and our audience for listening and the questions. It's been a pleasure to host this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.